What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Ian of Cyborg Octopus. Great to be able to talk with you, man. Thanks for being here.
What up, man? Hell yeah, thank you.
Anytime, anytime. So we got the new album Between the Light and Air out now. Really great album. Do you want to talk about like how the making of this was? Was there sort of like a preconceived goal or idea that you were trying to achieve? Was it a very experimental process? How did the making of Between the Light and Air sort of see the light, pun intended, of day?
Um, yeah, so when we are making music, we mostly start just trying to make individual songs, and then along the way, we sort of find our path. And so we just like being experimental, mixing genres. So we did a lot of that, and just kind of over time, I work on the art, and the lyrics are between a couple of us, and so in general, we wanted a heavier album, but also a more like lyrically positive album. So it was kind of a good balance of stuff that we love musically, and we just threw it all together. And it's been a long time coming. So 6 years since the last album, and we've been working on this one for about four. So it was a long process.
It's funny you mentioned that because Learning to Breathe, your last album, I did notice some differences within it. But would you say that maybe Between the Light and Air is maybe a continuation of Learning to Breathe, or was this sort of meant to sort of like signify a new beginning for Cyborg Octopus?
I think a little of both because anything we do, because I think a big part of our band is don't ever do the same thing twice. We're trying to constantly push what we're doing. So, in a lot of ways, it's a continuation. It's the same guys that wrote the album, even though there's been some member changes. The music was written by the same group of people. So it was a different process, but it's still the same band, and we were all influenced strongly by the music we already created, right? So we'd been playing those songs for 5 6 years. So when it came to making the album, all of us were kind of on the same page with where we were going to go with it.
hmm And being that you mentioned you were working on this new album for a course of 4 years, is what we're hearing on this album how these songs were originally structured, or did these change a lot over a span of time?
They changed a lot. So we're big on testing. So we will switch out riffs or like move parts around for the songs a lot. So none of these songs are anything like they started out as, except maybe the surf song. The surf song was largely written by one of our previous guitarists, and so a good chunk of it was written already, but we just continued to add to it. So I'd say about half that song was done, and then we kind of built on top of it because we liked what was there, but we wanted more heaviness, right? So we added more metal as opposed to the surf rock that takes up a lot of the song.
And it's funny you mention that too because I usually save this question for last, but I feel like with your band, it almost is kind of like the main question in a way. And being that you like to pile stuff on and on, how do you know when to stop exactly? Because in addition to having a variety of different sounds, these songs also vary a lot in length too. So,
Yeah, it is tough, and I think when we've got what we wanted to done, I think like when we come up with the songs, like in our head, there's an idea of like cool parts we can do with it. So like when we thought of the surf rock song, we wanted a lot of the the tom rolls. We wanted a lot of that, and we wanted um, a creepy like Jaws part. There's certain things that we have visually or like we imagine when we're creating the songs. And so we want all those parts to come through really strongly. And then someone normally is like, all right, guys, that's enough. Like somebody has to do it. So every song there's one person at a certain point that's like, I think that's where we should stop it or find a good conclusion. And that's why we like like these heavy breakdowns or really big passages to end the songs because we'll eventually just find a really good part and then everyone will say that's good enough. That's the good spot to stop. So that's kind of how it goes.
yeah, because I could. First off, I want to say, as you were answering that question, your screen froze for like a good 10 seconds as you were explaining it, which I just thought added so much more conceptual, artistic nature to it. I love how you froze, but you were still able to talk. That was good because normally it's the other way
That's
around.
progressive.
Yeah, so
That's
that was
funny.
really funny. But it's fair to say that every member, I know it's like kind of a cliche question to ask, what are your inspirations? But I think it's fair to say that everybody in Cyborg Octopus has their own sets of inspirations and vary in taste a lot, right?
Hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. So our guitarist is really into power metal and the oldies. He loves Van Halen. And Patrick, our keyboardist and saxophonist, loves deathcore. and he loves like MySpace era breakdowns. And I love everything in between, ska, funk, um, and emo music. I grew up on a lot of emo music, so all of us have like these different pieces that we've put together. And I've said before that we really tried to take everything we love about music and put it all into one album, right? Everything we like about albums in general, we tried to throw onto this in 35 minutes, I think, something like that. So we really hope everybody finds a little something, right? A little gem of something that they like as well.
Well, first off, as a guy who just saw My Chemical Romance and is a big emo fan, a high five to that. And
Hell yeah.
yeah, and you know what? That's actually like something I give this new album a lot of praise for, actually, because there's been a lot of bands that do take a lot of inspiration, whether they're more like proggy or they're more doomy or whatever. But like, their songs or their albums even would be like an hour and a half long. I've even made a joke saying you could be 40 minutes late to a Dream Theater or Opeth concert and make it before the first song ends. But like
Yeah.
here you're able to like bring in these different sources and condense it so much. Is there like a specific strategy to that?
I don't think so. I think it comes from really starting the song with the idea. And like I said, we think a lot about what we want to accomplish in the song, right? So, like on our last album, we had a punk rock song and called Shark Pit. But that wouldn't be a song that ends up being 6 minutes long. You know what I mean? It's going to be a quick 2.5 minute hardcore song. And then on the new album, The Projector is one of our favorites. And we wanted to make a prog epic. We wanted to make a prog ballad epic of sorts. And so it ended up being 8 minutes. And, it just kind of how it works out. But when it comes to giving in, it's a balance of like playing with those cliches, right? Because a lot of things we do is like make fun of these cliches that are in genres, that exist all the time. And so we're kind of making fun of music and ourselves at the same time, but we really love what we make. So it's kind of this weird balance of like we're making fun of ourselves and our music, but we're also really proud of it. So it's kind of a weird space to be in. But the people that get it, and we appreciate them.
I love it when bands are kind of like I call it when music sort of breaks the fourth wall in a way. Like
Definitely.
one of my favorite black metal albums ever is Shining's The Eerie Cold, and it opens up with literally just insulting their audience, like telling them you're not true. Why do you gotta hate on Eminem? At least the audience imitates the artist, but you can't say the same about Shining. So it's my honor to present to you an honorable death wish to all of you. Like just literally giving a
That's
flaming,
crazy.
like it was like, oh, here you go, another album you have to buy in order to listen to. Like just totally mimicking that. So when a band
And
is
that's what we love.
yeah, so it's fair to say like conceptually, Cyborg Octopus is almost kind of like commentary in a way, right?
It has its own commentary for sure. I would agree with that. And a big part of it is, when we started, we've been in the band for 10 years. When we started in 2011, we were playing with all these super serious deathcore bands, and we tried to be that for a minute. So the first couple of years of the band, I would say we were like a deathcore band with weird parts. And then over time, it's definitely evolved. But we realized that super serious, super angry persona just wasn't anybody in the band. It's just not what we do. And we love metal because it hypes us up and it makes us happy and makes us energized, right? It makes us want to party. So that's kind of the vibe we bring to it. And again, just trying to not take ourselves so seriously, but really care about the music. I figure if you care about the music and you're thinking about that the whole time, then it's going to come through and people will hopefully enjoy.
Definitely. And clearly, being the vocalist and lyricist, is it fair to say that like this is like the a concept? Does a concept or the lyrics also dictate the direction of the sound as well, or do you prefer to have like a whole composition to sing over before you start laying down lyrics?
It's a mix of both. So before the album's done, I just write lyrics. I just write whatever I'm feeling, kind of just pen to paper, just brain dump. And then the songs will start to become more solidified. And then I will either decide there's certain lyrics I wrote that I like to start, to sort of like be the jumping off point. Or I will decide none of these really fit this song and I'll write from scratch for the song. But when it comes to the ideas for this album and the themes, we thought about the very beginning energy and how people can affect one another. So I think all the songs in some way are talking about either interactions that you have with other people that are tough or interactions that you have with yourself that are tough. And I think it's less on a surface level and more on a like mental level, how you need to approach these interactions in your world to to take care of yourself more or less. And so I guess Between the Light and Air is sort of, you know, where someone grabs their inspiration, that spark that like keeps them going. So it's not a real place. So that's kind of where Between the Light and Air, the concept of the album title came from. So it's kind of jumping from a lot of places that influence us both musically and kind of spiritually in a way, you know, like how we dictate our lives. And so it's very serious while also not taking yourself seriously. So it's kind of a paradox in that way, but we also think like life and this whole thing we're doing in a death metal band is kind of nonsensical. So, you know, we kind of don't think about the repercussions so much. We just write about what matters to us, and then try to make the themes fit each particular song. So Spectres is about looking out for yourself and avoiding things that aren't good for you. But at the same time, it's about sort of betrayal. So we made that the spaghetti Western song. We made that sort of the epic where, you know, the music video is the guys do a heist and then one of the guys in the crew betrays the rest of them. And so it's sort of this, you know, look out for who you're around, but also look out for where you're going. So yeah, the songs are really philosophical in a way, but I think they fit the energy of each song. Like I said kind of before, it kind of fits the vibe and fits the themes of what each song is kind of going for. So I guess I help drive that as a lyricist for sure. I help drive the energy of the song.
I just find it so funny that you just mentioned, like, I think in the last question, that you don't take yourselves too seriously, and that you have a concept that you address that's just so almost like call this like thinking man's death metal in a way. It almost really seems like I would love to hear you guys do a philosophical tour with Mastodon or something like that. Like not even like play music, just sit on a stage and have like a talk about the unknown and because you touch a lot upon about the metaphysical as well, like the creative inspiration. We only see the results of that. We don't really see the inspiration itself in a way, like the initial spark. So I think it's a really fascinating concept that you express it through this music. Do you feel like as a lyricist you can maybe express this idea through other styles of music as well, or do you feel like your lyrical ideas would change as you hear different types of music?
That's a good question. So I was in a hardcore band when I was younger, and I did sort of the same thing, just less efficiently. Like, so the band was kind of metaphysical in that sense, because that's just kind of the person I am. Like, I'm very philosophical about a lot of stuff. So that band was sort of like that. But then I've also worked a little bit on some kind of like indie rock stuff. And that was way more surface level. I think it was way more surface level. I think with this band and metal in general, it's theater. It's what you make it, and you kind of build your own world. So that's really what I wanted to do with the album art, was kind of like build a world for this album to be in, but at the same time, really express these weird concepts, because they are serious, or like metaphysical is a good word for it, but at the same time they're all just ideas. You know, we can't take any of this too seriously, you know. So it's kind of, again, this paradox that writing in metal is just so theatrical, and you're really a lot freer to do whatever you want. And being a prog metal band, we can do anything we want, and it's not going to be out of the realm of possibility, right? It's not a matter of can we do it, it's how. If we wanted to do something crazy, how can we pull it off? And so I think that's a lot of what the album is pulling off kind of weird ideas that we just think are cool.
Do you think it's easier to come up with ideas as a band when you're in the company of each other, or is it better that you guys go off in different directions and maybe come back with your own ideas in a way?
That for sure. We share a lot of guitar profiles, so there's a lot of back and forth musically. But then when we're talking about lyrics, I'm a big person in like project management. I think about project management when I'm kind of doing this because I'm also our band manager, you know, so I do a lot of the business end. But when we get together for stuff, especially lyrically, have something. Don't show up and just expect to think with me. Have an idea or something that we can bounce off each other. So we would have a lot of. I have a walk-in closet that I've made a studio, and
Wow.
so we'll have the guys come over and we'll hang out for a day and just chill and talk and I'll have them pre-pro. So actually they have patterns or they have ideas for the vocals. They'll go in and try to do it what they want. And then I'll go in and be like this, and then I'll kind of add my own spin on it. So there's a lot of back and forth that happens with our band. And I think that's good. Because again, the ideas can get way crazier and way more broad if you start with what you think is crazy, and then someone else comes in and is like, well, what if we added this, or what if we did this instead? So that's a huge part of how the band writes stuff. And vocally, that was a big we pre-pro'd everything before we went in. There wasn't anything that we weren't sure about when we went in to record vocals. So vocals took 3 days for the 7 songs, but that's because one day was singing, one day was screaming, and then the last day was kind of everything in between.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that because again, like, there's really no limits with Cyborg Octopus, which I think is great. But here's the big but: Is there ever any idea or any sound or any concept, anything, where any member would just say no immediately, like we can't do that, or has
I don't think so. I don't think so. It's never happened. I think with the surf rock song, originally we said no because there was no metal parts. So it's like it was only a surf song and there was no breakdowns or heavy parts at all. And we were like, okay, if we add, how much can we add for everybody in the band to say yes? That was really the goal. So there's never been a hard no. And I know there's certain songs from each of the guys that's like one guy will individually not like that song very much, or it goes different ways. But everybody also has their favorites. So it no, there's no limits.
fair
It's
enough?
just a matter of making it happen.
Fair enough. And the final question I wanted to ask you is being off near the Bay Area for your sound. Obviously, coming outside of San Francisco, it's the thrash capital, a great hardcore scene. There seems to be a great scene of multiple genres out there. How has Cyborg Octopus been cutting their teeth in that sort of Northern California scene, or has always the goal to kind of like go outside the scene a little bit more?
Oh, well, no, we would love to go out more, but we're all working guys. We all have full-time jobs. And so getting 5 of us out on tour is hard, but we've been trying to do it. So we're definitely have a couple tours coming up. But the past 6 years, we've just been gigging live in the Bay Area and kind of California, up to Oregon and Seattle. The West Coast is where we spent almost all of our time. So we are going to do some of that coming up, but we're trying to get to a couple different places moving forward. But I think people in the West Coast know who we are. I feel like we're a regional band, right? Like we're not doing national tours, but I think we've really covered the side of the world where we're at really well, where people do know who we are, and hometown heroes. We definitely feel like hometown heroes when we're around. So we just recently played a venue in San Francisco that we'd never played before, Neck of the Woods,
Oh, I've heard of it.
and it was great. We'd never been there before, and so it was an awesome show, and it was one of the biggest venues we've played. So it was really cool, with the new album, playing new venues and sort of breaching the consistent dive bars that we normally play. You know what I mean? So it's cool to be moving up a little bit.
I'm excited because again, we already talked about the different lyrical themes, the different sounds. We already talked about how everything's so different. Now you guys got to play at different venues. Play at like different dive bars, play at
Yeah.
theaters, play at a school, play at a nursing home. I don't know, just like play anywhere.
Yeah, nursing home would be sick. And I remember some of my earliest local shows. I've been going to local shows since I was like maybe 12, 13 years old, because back when I was growing up, that was cool. That was like the thing to be doing. So yeah, I was going to shows at middle schools and high schools when I was younger. And so I would love to see more of that. We'd be very down to play some house parties or stuff like that. That doesn't happen as often in California anymore.
Yeah, that would be actually really fun. Again, I think you guys should just be the ultimate diverse band. Any sound, any place, any theme, anything. And with a name like Cyborg Octopus, it's so open to interpretation. There, it really is no
Yep.
wrong answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the point of the band. You know, come in with an open mind, and take what you want out of it, because there's so we know it's dense. We know there's a lot going on, but there's also, you know, a lot to absorb and a lot to appreciate, and a lot to think about when you go listen to other music. I think listening to something like our album, I go to other music and I think about, like, what were the limitations the people that were writing this put on themselves to make this music, you know? And I think everybody should be a little freer with kind of the art they make. You know, think less about what people are gonna think about it and just make stuff from the heart as much as you can. So we're trying to bring this love fest across the United States this year. So we hope to make it to New York pretty soon.
Absolutely, man. We'd love to have you here. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Cyborg Octopus. Be sure to check out their brand new kick ass album, Between the Light and Air. It has everything you could possibly imagine on it in one album. We will see you next time on Heavy New York. And your face is frozen again, and you're like this, and that is the best ending to any Zoom interview I have ever done.